Hello, everybody in the comments. Hello, hello, hello. Just want to say hi to everybody really quick. Shout out to Little Puppet, who is now a Sabby Sabs member. Thanks so much and welcome. And yes, Hamza, Taylor Hudak is in Sweden right now. Yes, so Taylor actually will not be able to join us today, but Sean O'Brien is here and he is the security advisor for PANQUAKE. So he'll be able to tell us a lot about the website, a lot about the platform, and things on the technical level. So welcome, Sean.
Glad to be here.
All right, so I am going to share my screen because I want to show everyone the website so they can see what we're looking at here.
Awesome.
All right, so everyone can see my screen. So Sean, so this is the PANQUAKE Talk Liberation website. Can you tell everybody like what is PANQUAKE all about?
Sure. So PanQuake is a next generation social network, social platform, really. It's a short messaging service, so similar to Twitter, but better. And not only does it have awesome privacy by design built into the network, which is something that I'm very much a part of and very passionate about, we're serious about respecting users. Giving users the tools they need on their end to reach the audience they should be reaching, but often aren't reaching in these other social networks because they're shadow banned, et cetera, et cetera. And also, making sure that the data is on the client side, is on the side of the user. So we don't want any information like phone numbers or email addresses or anything like that. But we do want to make sure that people have that awesome experience of being able to communicate with people, to boost their messages, and to really, hopefully have a little fun too.
Awesome. So I'm gonna pop out for just a second. So how did this come about? Like what was the reason for creating another platform?
Sure. So we all know that these big tech platforms have numerous problems, not only the privacy and security issues I mentioned, but really issues around censorship and freedom of information. So we need something that can give us the ability to reach people, to say what needs to be said, really a lifeboat for our users, our friends, our families, our colleagues, right? Thinking beyond them being users, but being people, real people. And there's a number, of course, of alternative social networks out there. We're learning some lessons both from what not to do in the form of big tech, and also some lessons about what to do, how we can do things much better with this platform. The implementation is a blockchain implementation. That means that there's a record of all of the messages that you send out, which we call quakes. So all those messages and then interactions with other users, that's auditable, right? So part of our message, part of our promise to the people using PanQuake is that you'll be able to see that when you say something, it's actually there, right? When you have X number of followers, you have X number of followers, right? And if you lose a follower, it's not because there's something else going on, as often you see in these other networks like Twitter, right? So that's the basic sort of premise there. We have the ability for people to do what they should be doing with this powerful global network we have called the internet, right? Reaching people, saying the things that need to be said, but we don't have to spy on them, right? So we don't do any manipulation through this network. We're not doing obviously placed ads, but we're also not doing manipulated timelines. So people see the content from the people that they follow. It's very much an opt-in style network.
Okay.
And we're not going to be boosting things or giving people the ability to pay for placed boosted messages or any of that. I know some other networks, even the alternative ones, have embraced that sort of model. But instead, the thing that we want to do, which we think is much more direct and simple, is have a subscription-based model. So for $5 a month, you can have access to all these awesome features, get out of the big tech filterverse, get out of that bubble, and then also be able to, really feel comfortable, we hope. We want to really build a community. So.
Okay. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Quarl Mark said, can you give examples of what is being censored?
Sure. So I often find that, well, let's start with the examples that are not so known, right? Everybody knows, obviously, that, the president of the United States was kicked out of Twitter. Whatever one thinks about that, it happened, and that's a big deal. Everyone knows that there's a lot of posts being pushed with misinformation and all these labels on them. And then those are either banned, or the profiles that are sending that information are banned, and so on and so forth. Everybody knows all that. The stuff that's lesser known, I think, is the shadow banning, or the shadow sort of unfollowing and that kind of activity. If you look at your social media account, you might find that you lost 100 followers and you don't know where they went. And this kind of thing happens often with me, happens often with activists that I know, happens often with lots of groups who are trying to make a real difference in the world. And I think, it's this sort of thing where we have AI moderation going on and nobody really knows what's happening, and hiding behind that sort of cloak is what these big tech networks do. They have the plausible deniability of saying, well, hey, maybe our automated rules accidentally kicked off something. It, got rid of something that it shouldn't have gotten rid of. So for me, the specific examples don't matter as much. I mean, we can always point to things that are pulled. We see on both the left and the right, we see a lot of censorship happening. We see even mainstream articles sometimes accidentally getting censored because they're caught in these filters, or they're caught with some army of moderators that's being paid, by one of these big tech networks to remove stuff. So yeah, I think we should try to focus a little bit on the personal if we can, because a lot of that stuff is going under the radar. And it's so important that the average individual is able to express themselves, to think through things, to have an actual conversation. Part of the promise of the earlier web, which I hope many of us remember, is that you could go out there and you could go to a forum and you could talk to somebody and you could work through issues, right? And you could basically, you could be a teenager who's figuring yourself out, right? And being automatically booted or censored or kicked off a network because of something you said can be a real hindrance to growth and learning too, so.
Absolutely. There's a question in the chat from Michelle that says, when will this be available?
That's always the big question. So the simple answer to that is the sooner that we're fully supported, the sooner it'll be available. We do have at least a release timeline, and that has a beautiful infographic on the website. If you go out to panquake.com and look in the tech section, you'll find that, and also in the new beta sign up section, beta application section. We're going to have a beta release, obviously, and that beta release will have 5,000 users. When we hit our next funding goal, we'll be able to do that. Then after that, we're going to keep moving as quickly as we possibly can, but I can't give you any firm dates yet. If you want to see it delivered faster, please support us. We're living in a world that has so many problems, and it's so infrequent that we're presented with solutions. So I think it's really important that when we're presented with one and we have people who are really serious about working on it, that we support those folks. That's the reason I volunteer, right? I think the project is really important, and I know we can get across that finish line if we have enough support. So.
Another question that appeared in the chat is, what safeguards will be put in place to ensure that corporate influence and interference is kept to a minimum?
That is a great question. So we have a subscription model to start, right? And that means that when people join the network, they're on a level playing ground. We also don't have the kinds of manipulation that I mentioned that are really the heart of the business model of some of these other networks, which are, paying for your ad to come up in somebody's timeline, right? Or
Right.
even paying for sponsored ads to come up in the sidebar or whatever it is. So it is much harder to manipulate a network by default doing that. Even having botnets, folks, and so on, you do have to pay the $5. That is a deterrent to spinning up thousands and thousands of bots, right? But the other thing that's really more important is that opt-in feature or functionality that I mentioned. It's a heck of a lot harder, right, to work through these networks and try to manipulate information if you can't force people who aren't following you to see that information, right? If people only see the content from the folks that they're following, or let's say if they look in the search bar and they search for cats or something like that, then you have a network where it's much harder for those folks to be manipulated by corporate interests or government interests, and et cetera. We're not saying manipulation is impossible, right? But we are saying we can come up with some good steps to sort of limit that. Something else I should mention here, which I think is really important, the promise of PANQUAKE is not just a promise about privacy and security and non-manipulation and all of that. We're going to have some really cool gamification, so some really cool features. So one of the ones which I'm very excited about is something called a Thunderquake. And that's sort of a mass amplification tool where you can earn Thunderquake points over the course of, say, a week. And then you earn that by doing various stuff in the network, replying to users and so on and so forth. And you earn that Thunderquake point, and then you can gift it to another user. So say if I'm following WikiLeaks or some other group, I can give a Thunderquake to them, and then WikiLeaks can amplify a message to their followers, sending to their followers a message that says, hey, here's this message. This message is going to go out on Tuesday. It's scheduled to go out on Tuesday. And here's what it says. Would you like to be part of this Thunderquake? And if they if they opt in to be part of that Thunderquake, then those followers will automatically just amplify that network across all of their timelines. So features like that sort of level the playing field a little bit. Even if a Coca-Cola gets Thunderquakes right on their account or something, they're still playing the same, gamification that WikiLeaks is, right? And they don't have more power in that network than others. So I think there's a real opportunity here for grassroots organizing as well. I think there's a real opportunity for folks who are so buried because it's so easy to just toss money at these other social networks to gain influence. I think there's a real opportunity here. So.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to mention in reference to the censorship that a lot of us are experiencing is that you mentioned the shadow bans. And one of the things I can tell you guys from experience, you may not realize that you're shadow banned. So you may be putting out information, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You may not realize it, but over time, if you notice that nobody seems to be seeing like your post, or those are usually some of the
Right.
signs that kind of stand out. I've had people message me before on Twitter and say, have you seen this? And I'm like, no, I haven't seen anything you've posted for like a week. So
And there's also, yeah. And I don't mean to cut you off there, but this is something I'm really passionate about because there's also these sort of these actions that can unilaterally be taken there's no accountability at all on the part of these network operators. I had a friend who just transitioned, right, changed gender, and she changed her name and changed her profile photo, and then all of a sudden, all of the people she was following, her follow count, right, who she was following, went to 0 in Twitter. Just all of a sudden. Now we can't prove, right? There's no real way of proving, that these two things are linked, but I think it's extremely likely that they're linked, right? So not having that accountability, it can have a really serious effect on someone's life. And also obviously, an example like that, the discrimination and so on, it's a huge problem. So, yeah, I mean, people ask, well, why do you want to have a blockchain product? And one of the things that's cool about a blockchain for folks that hear it as sort of a buzzword but aren't sure what it is, it's a ledger, it's a spreadsheet, let's say, right? And that's immutable, so the information stays and can be verified. If there's some sort of moderation in PANQUAKE, or some user puts some atrocious, terrible thing on there and it does end up getting removed, there's going to be a record of that. Right, it's going to say exactly what happened and why it happened. And we don't even have that bare honesty in any of these networks right now. And like you
Right.
said, you notice over time, you notice that you're not reaching the same number of people that you used to a few years ago, with exactly the same messages. So
Another thing I want to tell you guys about in reference to censorship is I recommend, if you're following someone, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, and you were following that person, if you're subscribed to someone on YouTube and you definitely subscribe, I recommend going back and double checking, because this is another problem people have been running into. They realize that they've been unchecked, like just out of nowhere. They realize all of a sudden they're unsubscribed from someone or they're unfollowed and they didn't do it themselves. I've had that happen to me a couple of times because I've been unsubscribed from Jimmy Dore like 3 times. And every time I go back in and hit subscribe again. So it's a problem.
yeah, you literally don't know what you don't know, right? You have to go and you have to basically check, okay, I follow these people, I thought I was still following them, and getting forcefully unfollowed is unreal. And I want to note also that this has gotten worse during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mhm.
So there's been a lot of push, not only around the vaccine stuff, labeling stuff, misinformation, censoring Naomi Wolf, and so on, but
Mhm.
also there's this AI, this artificial intelligence automation is a huge issue. I mean, because these programs are basically black boxes where you can't see inside and know anything about how they work. And so they're crawling through the network, just, doing what they do. And even though we don't quite know what they do, we do know they have a high amount of bias, and that bias is often against people of color. Like the example I used, might be, gender issues, or folks who are trying to transition. Uh, Blocking this stuff, unfollowing people forcefully, banning profiles or deactivating profiles, and nobody knows why. In a world that's so connected, where people are living and breathing online so much, and it may have serious impacts not only on their social life, but them being able to reach people for emergencies and so on. This is a pretty big deal. And having a network that doesn't do that, right? But not only doesn't do that, encourages positive interaction in the network, limits the ability of corporate power and government power, and so on. That's a really important goal, and that's
Right.
basically why I support PANQUAKE, and I hope you all will too. So.
There's a question from Eric Thomas that says, is all of the PanQuake code viewable on a public repository like GitHub?
Yeah, so I'm very serious about free and open source software. I've got a long history working on free and open source software projects. PanQuake.com, the PanQuake network we're building, that is all free and open source software, and it's going to be released under the GNU General Public License, or a license like it, something that's usually called copyleft. We have not done so yet, but we will. We basically want to make sure we're ready not only to release the code, but also to facilitate and have a good open source community around the code base. But we are very serious about that transparency. And that's also good for our security model. For those of you who are into cybersecurity and so on, having people around the world being able to audit our code, not only see that we're not doing something atrocious, but if there's bugs or so on, and all software has bugs, right? Then we can fix those, and hopefully fix those quickly and with the help of an open source community. So we will get there. That stuff is not in a public GitHub or GitLab repository yet. But internally, when we are working on those repositories, working on those repos now, and we're definitely going to have free and open source software licensing. We're very serious about it.
Awesome. So I just want to show people what will be available on PanQuake. So this is PanQuake technology. And can you explain this a little bit, Sean?
Yeah,
Um,
so because we are not yet at the point where we can show the front end of the product, which I can promise you is beautiful, and we've had a number of great people take a look at it. Bill Binney, Graham Elwood, a number of folks. And I hope, Sabrina, we should get you to look at the front end because we can show you a preview. So, it is beautiful. We'd love to have that stuff up there. We don't have it up now. So we do have these slides that sort of explain things about our architecture. We are not only building a social network here. So this isn't like just a clone of Twitter or, some other network that sits on some centralized server. We're building a real peer-to-peer decentralized architecture. So the blockchain is sort of the ultimate authority on the record, like the record of the network, right? And the interactions that have happened and the communication that has gone on. But users are going to have on their own machines their own private information. We don't want to touch it, right? And that's good for us too. It's good for you as the users, right? But it's good for us as well. We don't want to have that stuff. So that requires us building this sort of different model that's not centralized, and we're connecting users to each other in a peer-to-peer way. So when you're interacting on a Quake on someone's timeline, you're connecting with that user. After being, of course, authorized to be on the network as you with your identity, they get authorized on the network as them with their identity, and you to talk, basically. And that's the structure we're working on. So there's some stuff here that's kind of probably a little too techy and a little confusing. If you could show the gamification slide, that would be great, Sabrina. This one right here. I don't know if, yeah, great. I don't know if you can read that. It's still pretty small. These are the 4 features I was talking about that are pretty exciting. So a PANQUAKE, that's sort of like bundling a bunch of Quakes together. So in the Twitter model, it would be like having a thread, basically. But it's much cooler than that because it allows you to not only stack your Quakes, right? Stack your Quakes, PANQUAKE, this pancake analogy. It not only allows you to stack your Quakes, it allows you to also put Quakes from another user in there. So a lot of the journalists out there or tech folks or people who are just, writing about something they care about, they're often having to do these long threads and things get buried in weird ways and replies, and the conversation gets sort of messed up, right? Being able to build your own PANQUAKE and take your messages, put them in the order you want to put them, put someone else's Quake in there as well because it's part of the same issue, or you're talking about the thing that they said or the story that they wrote somewhere. You put all of that together, you bundle it up as a PANQUAKE, and then you can just share that link with other users. So it's kind of like putting together, this beautifully linked thread of interactions in the network. And that's a really fun feature that I hope a lot of folks will really like. Thunderquake I talked about. Cupquake is interesting because this basically, adds a user automatically to your followers just by clicking a little cupcake icon on their profile. What you want to do is use the Cupquake to promote someone new on the network, for example. Right. Let's say, Sabrina, you just joined PANQUAKE and I want to tell everybody, hey, all of my followers, hey, follow Sabrina or follow some other project that you're doing and so on and so forth. I can do that. I can just automatically Cupquake and then everybody in my followers list will be recommended to follow you. And then a Lovequake. And this one actually seems so simple. And this is functionality that, of course, other networks could give, but they don't. A lot of interaction that goes on in Twitter is clicking around, clicking from one page to another, going back and forth, having 20 tabs open in your browser if you're using a desktop computer or laptop. And it's really hard to navigate sometimes, and you get very lost, right? But also you find yourself, it becomes a job almost. You have to go in there to retweet somebody's content that you want to retweet. And if you yourself have some sort of project or business or, whatever campaign, you're going in and then having to retweet that stuff or pay for some third-party tools, right? Lovequake allows you to basically click a little heart icon on somebody's profile, and then you automatically will re-amplify the information that that user posts. So again, if there's a campaign that I'm really into, if there's a, show that I always want to amplify the content from their show, I can just Lovequake, that user, and then automatically that'll just roll up in my timeline so that my followers see it. And I don't have to go in and do that onerous thing. So yeah, these are sort of the fun features that we're building in. And it goes beyond just delivering on that privacy, security, and respect promise. We want to make sure we're really encouraging positive engagement as well. And that's what we hope we'll do. So.
Awesome. So there's a couple questions about the ownership. So what is the ownership structure of PANQUAKE, and who controls PANQUAKE and who makes the decisions?
So we have a mixed team of volunteers and some paid staff now, which we've been able to, of course, get donations and then pay staff full-time to work, which is really accelerated. So that's one of the great things. We're really investing in people with the money that's donated to us to try to deliver this product more quickly. As far as the ownership and everything goes, we have no investors. We're very serious about not allowing investment at all. There is no way in the structure of Talk Liberation to basically, and Talk Liberation is the company behind PANQUAKE. There's no way to just throw $1 billion at us and take it over. So that's the basic structure. There's probably not a lot more to say about that. As we go on, I'm sure we'll provide a little more info, but we are just very serious about not having corporate takeover, corporate capture. I'm sure a lot of folks have been promised a lot of things by other networks, other products, and then they see it sold off to somebody and it becomes something terrible. We're very serious about building in from the beginning structures that don't allow that to happen. So.
Okay. Well, I really like hearing that. One question. So on the website, I see video presentations. So is this going to be similar to just like the video clips that we upload to YouTube or Rockfin?
Oh, this actually is, these are presentations on the website that are explaining PANQUAKE, the product, and these are just embedded video that we put in there for that. Every month, we have what we call a delivery meeting. We just had our latest delivery meeting a few days ago, and that was great, the July delivery there. And we explained a lot of the cool stuff that's coming, the progress that we make, between the months, we always explain. And we talked about the application for the beta. So basically, we are now accepting applications for our first 5,000 users in the network. Those folks, because of the blockchain model of trust that we have, they have to basically be genuine social media users. We want to make sure they're not bots or trolls or whatever. So we have a simple application that you can fill out to basically get into our list, our queue of folks that we're going to vet, and then those folks will be the first users in the beta. So that's what that July delivery was about. These are just other deliveries. You can go back through each month if you wanted to and see the progress that we've made. If you're wondering about having video features in the network and images, other media in the network, we will have the ability to embed media from elsewhere to start. And we're working on some ways basically to do something to have basically our own media hosting in network. But we really can't release information about that yet, partially because we haven't built it yet, right? And we want to make sure the things we say with confidence to folks. And partially because we want to focus on all these other challenges first. So we want to focus on the short messaging, right? The Quakes, which are, as I said, similar to like a Twitter first.
Okay. I'm glad you explained that because that way people can have a better understanding.
Sure.
There was a question in the chat. I just want to go to that really quick. Harry said, how do you get others to see your content when you first join if users can only see messages from users they already follow?
Yeah, so we've thought about that a little bit. Basically, we want to have users be suggested categories potentially. So you say, hey, I like cat videos, right? Or I like whatever. I'm really into soccer or some other thing, some other interest. And then folks will still be able to filter and search and go through the network just like you would any other network. Also, obviously, we have that PANQUAKE feature where folks can say, hey, Sean just joined the network. Let me, recommend Sean to all of my followers. We're hoping that will make sure that people can find each other more easily. This is an essential problem, of course, with alternative social media. It's like the network problem until you get sort of that, critical mass of users. If you've ever joined an alternative social network like Mastodon and so on, this can be one of the issues. Your friends aren't all there yet. So what can you do? Another thing we're doing is we're having gift accounts, basically. So we're allowing users to basically, if I wanted to spend $20 a month instead of $5 a month and give away 3 accounts a month, I could. So we're hoping those kinds of features will encourage people to find each other. But we're very serious about not having recommended, follow, Jimmy Dore and having that forcefully placed on your timeline. We don't want to be doing that. We are going to have, things like timeline trends. So if a lot of people are talking about something, we will have actual real, really computed trends, not all these manipulated trends that you may see, in other networks. So we will have those kinds of things. And I think that'll be plenty for folks to be able to find the users who are interested in the things that they're interested in. So.
That's awesome. Quick question. So Michelle wants to know, Sabby, just ask him how much money they need to get this up and running.
So we have our fundraising goals on the website. Right now, we are approximately 82% funded for our first round. So if you could just be part of the group that helps us get over the hump there, that would be great. That's at gogetfunding.com/panquake. Or of course, you can go out to panquake.com and click on the donate button or. We don't know the exact number yet, but we are doing a lot with very little right now. And if you can just help us get through this first round, that would be incredible. Another thing you can do, actually, and I haven't talked about it yet, we launched a series of Substacks called Talk Liberation. So that's an email newsletter as well as a weekly video. And that's about big tech issues, censorship issues, privacy issues, issues with cybersecurity, and so on. And we basically cover the top stories of that week. We do a rundown that's very nice and simple. And that rundown is published to talkliberation.substack.com. You can subscribe to that as well, and that will also support this project. We want to make sure we're thinking of new and innovative ways to basically, get this campaign, turbo packed with energy. And we really think Talk Liberation has been great for that in the last month. We also have it in multiple languages. So we're now creating content for it in 5 different languages. And if you sign up for that newsletter, it's doing a donation, right? Just like doing a donation through the Go Get Funding, but you also get, the content from it, which is great. And one of the things we thought about a lot with that was making sure that the content was geared in such a way that it wouldn't compete with other content creators. We want folks who are, doing tech podcasts or doing political podcasts or doing, whatever content they're doing, to be able to subscribe to Talk Liberation, get those top stories from the week, and then that'll be their easy way of basically having that rundown right in front of them and talking about it. So yeah. Donate at gogetfunding.com/panquake or go out to talkliberation.substack.com. And those are both ways to support it. We will get there. And if you help us, we'll get there faster. So
Awesome. Yeah, as you guys can see, it looks like they have 81% funded so far.
And that's for the first round, I should mention. That's enough to get us to the beta of the product. But then we're going to be raising more money after that. So it will be a little staged, and coming from one funding level to a higher funding level to a higher funding level. We want our growth to be smart growth, right? We want to make sure that we're able to scale in a way that's healthy. We're not some startup that's coming in and trying to get millions and millions of dollars out of people, or trying to woo investors. As I said, we literally can't do that. So yeah, just support us, and we will get there together. And as you can see from the website and all the information we have up, we'll continually update you on our progress. So
cool. There's a question from Chris that says, will adding media create hardware/connection constraints for being part of the network?
Yeah, Chris, so that's a very good question, and that's one of the reasons we don't want to sort of jump at an answer, right? All of these networks, Rockfin, Odyssey, Library, PeerTube, et cetera, have come up with creative ways to solve the problem of dealing with large amounts of media sent through a network with lots and lots of different users. We're not quite sure what our version of that will be at the end of the day. At the start, though, you'll at least be able to, paste in a link from somewhere else, and it'll embed nicely and look beautiful. So we're going to start there, and then we'll see where we get from there. There's a lot of cool technical ways to do it, and also potentially solve the problem of bit rot, right? Which is when a link just disappears off the internet. So we're thinking a lot about that, thinking about ways that we can archive and keep the sanctity of the information that's in that blockchain record. So yeah, I don't have a great answer for you this moment, but we'll get there.
All right. Eric Thomas has a question. How will PANQUAKE respond to the government law enforcement requests for user data, such as if law enforcement is trying to identify a user?
So we are purposefully not collecting information that would be identifiable about a user. You sign up. Basically, you get a user handle. We know the user handle. We don't know anything else about you. We're segmenting in a very smart way the payment process so that when you go out and you pay for with your credit card, or maybe pay with cryptocurrency, or, we're going to have multiple methods. When you go out and do that, it is smartly compartmentalized away from us so that we're not the ones collecting that information. Then when you create your username, your handle, your data lives with you on your device, or, can be spread across multiple devices, but we're not having that on servers. So the way we solve this problem is not unlike the way that, let's say, a smart VPN company solves this problem, or some other service. We basically don't have the logs to hand over. So the answer to these requests would basically be, we don't have the data you're looking for, we hope. Obviously, we will have to cross some of these bridges when they come. And I know there's secret courts in the United States that, for example, won't even allow you to tell someone when you get a data request. And these are complicated problems that, are ultimately solved by not collecting the data in the first place. So that's our main approach. It's pretty much all I can say at the moment. Yeah, we hope that the essential trust we're creating by not storing your stuff in the first place will be the main protectant, not only of you, but also of us being able to keep running the service without having some sort of government shutdown. So,
okay. Hamas has a question. Is there going to be a PANQUAKE app?
So we want PANQUAKE to be panquake.com, right? We want to make sure that my grandmother can go out, type panquake.com and get PANQUAKE, right? And we actually are having the capability for you to start interacting with the network, start clicking around, finding content, and even doing basic functionality like liking and replying, basically without having a subscription. So we are very serious about that sort of drop-in experience where you're not going to have big barriers to getting on to the network. Because of that, we're not shipping an app, like a standalone app. We may do so on mobile phones, because of course that is sort of the way that people interact generally on mobile phones. Unfortunately, some of these big tech platforms, I expect, will put barriers in front of us being able to deliver apps on those platforms. If you're familiar with some of the rules, for example, that Apple has put forward for the iOS App Store,
Mhm.
they not only make it difficult for subscription services to exist at all without giving Apple a cut of the money, right? That's what the Fortnite lawsuit is about. They also make it difficult for you to run your own network the way you want. Basically, Apple says if you have a social network and you don't follow the moderation rules we think you should be following, then they delist your app. So it remains to be seen, what's going to happen there in the mobile world. We probably will end up coming up with creative solutions there. But the quick answer, I guess, should be no. You can go out to panquake.com and start interacting. That's what we want to happen when we ship the product. So,
Can I make a suggestion?
sure.
Um, Having been one of those people that started on YouTube and then joined Rockfin, one of the biggest problems that I constantly ran into was that for the longest time, Rockfin didn't have an app. And then when they got an app, they had it on, iPhones, but they didn't have an app for Android, but they do
Android.
now.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
the thing that I was hearing from people is that people were choosing not to go on Rockfin and watch content simply because there wasn't an app. Simply because
Mm-hmm.
like they didn't want to sit in front of their computer, in front of their laptop, like that kind of thing. So just from my experience dealing with some of these other platforms, and I know Odyssey is running into the same issue,
Mm-hmm.
especially a lot of the younger generation, they like having that freedom of having that app
That's
as
right.
a yeah.
And that's the way that they're used to interacting, right? Like you said, some of it's generational, some of it isn't. Yeah, we're going to try to do mobile apps, but I just, I guess have those caveats up front because I'm always trying to think 10 steps ahead. Definitely going to do one for Android, and because we're going to be free and open source software, we will most likely be targeting something called F-Droid, which is an alternative app store that does very serious vetting of privacy and security of the apps that are in it. So, the bar we have for ourselves building this thing is very high. But yeah, you're 100% right. Having an app is the way to reach people. So, and this is why these conversations are great, because that feedback really helps us.
Awesome. I'm gonna do one more question I just saw. PayPal is now restricting transfers to clients simply for the reason that the client may be engaged in activities that are critical of the government. Will Panquake be using PayPal?
It's funny you ask that question. So we have had a problem with PayPal already. And if you go back and look, you'll see we have updates about it. In the month of May, into June, or at least the last week of May, early June, we basically had a situation where PayPal was not dispersing the money from donations people were sending to PanQuake via PayPal. So Go Get Funding has both Stripe and PayPal as options. A lot of people would donate via PayPal. That money would come out of these donors' hard-earned, out of their pockets, and would never get to us. So we fought with them for, weeks, documented it very well. You can look, we did a press release about it and everything else. We were able eventually to refund that money to those donors. Going to do that functionality. In some cases, though, fees were taken out by PayPal, and there's pretty much nothing we can do about it. So yes, we know very seriously the problems with PayPal, and we're very seriously already on their shit list. So yeah, you're 100% right about that. This is why, though, we do have to think differently about things like cryptocurrencies and so on. You can donate to PanQuake right now with a wide variety, actually, of cryptocurrencies. And the actual product, the actual network will have some of those options. I don't know if it'll have all of them, but we're going to try. So,
Okay. And one more. Eric said, why not publicly post the Panquake source code now? I'd feel more confident in the project if there was a repository I could browse.
sure. So this is a question we've gotten a few times, and as an open source person, for an open source software person, I am very much aware that there are projects out there that start with the repo wide open. We want to make sure that we're ready for a community. I think there are a lot of projects that are free software and will have a deluge of requests, from community developers or people just looking at their source code and so on. And it's the kind of thing that you need to have infrastructure support people, et cetera, in place. You really need a community manager to manage that community so that everybody can actually interact in a way where they're not shouting at each other, talking over each other, et cetera, et cetera. You want to harness the energy of these wonderful community contributors for your open source project. You don't want to discourage people from joining your community. So, I think all that's the most essential reason. But the other thing is, quite frankly, we have some very serious adversaries. If you look at some of the folks who've endorsed us, who have worked on the project directly or indirectly, or some of our biggest proponents, we're freedom of information activists, right? We have folks like Bill Binney, Christina Assange, et cetera, who are backing this project, and it has already meant some very serious targeting. So we do have some security concerns that we feel, and I definitely feel, releasing where we're at right now is not a good idea. We're working on a technical white paper. We're working on code day in, day out. We're working on it in the open source style using Git repositories and so on and so forth. But right now we're keeping that restricted in team. We'll get there. You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to audit it. And we're going to be serious about things like having third-party security audits and so on, and testing, bug bounties, all of that good, beautiful stuff. But right now it's just a little too early, basically.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen one more time just to show those that may have came in a little bit later. This is the website here for PANQUAKE, and it is powerful next generation messaging technology. I'll put the link to the site in the chat.
And if you could also, the Talk Liberation Substack, and I don't know if you can show that real quickly, that'd be great. Taylor, who we mentioned, does an excellent job doing these beautiful videos for us as well. So we're trying to deliver the content as well, give people something pretty cool that they can follow. We're not paywalling that content by default either. So you can subscribe as a free user or subscribe and support the project. So, we've been finding and we've been hoping that people are very interested in getting a cool newsletter with their donation, not just donating. So.
Talk Liberation Substack. I think I found it.
Cool.
Just want to make sure this is the right thing, and I'll share the screen.
Awesome. Thank you.
This one?
That would be us. And click let me read it first. See, great. So we're doing these cool weekly episodes, and then we also have articles, and we will be working on investigations, which will be longer form content that is also specific to one issue.
Awesome. By the way, you guys, those of you watching, if you have not checked out Substack, I highly recommend that you do. There's a lot of great work on there that a lot of people don't get to see unless you're on Substack. So I recommend checking out Substack. And I'll put the link for that in the chat as well. Post that here. All right, Sean, thank you so much for coming on to explain this to everyone. I'm going to hang out here for a little bit to close things out with the audience, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. How are you guys doing? Eric Thomas, I subscribe to Glimwald and Tabi on Substack. Yeah, definitely check out Substack, you guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so. There's some good work on there. Propaganda, you're back. Sabby, you're the best. Yeah, thanks so much. Awesome. Um, yeah. So, I'm glad you guys were able to see what Panquake is about, and I'm glad he was able to come on and tell you guys about that. Sorry about Taylor. I found out like right before we went live that she wasn't going to be able to make it, but hopefully she'll be able to come back in the future. Sometimes these things happen. It is what it is. But I do want to let you guys know Friday I will have Misty from Facts on the Ground. She's coming on to talk about what electoral politics is like in Ohio, which is very important right now because we all just, Nina Turner had her election and her results came through last night. So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what Ohio voters are thinking, why they voted the way that they did. And there's no one better to have on for that than someone who is actually from Ohio, lives in Ohio, and knows the electoral scene there. So Misty will be on to discuss that. And Meg from Fred Hampton Leftist is also coming on. She has a special announcement for you guys. So that should be a pretty cool time. Um, Tomorrow, I will not be here. I will be at Fred Hampton Leftist. You can catch me there at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our FHL Roundtable. So definitely check that out. If you guys have not had a chance to see FHL Roundtable, you're missing out. It's a fun time. You get to see a whole bunch of us like kick back and have fun. And there have been some really interesting news stories this week. So we have a lot to talk about. Um, Yeah, so I definitely see the comments in the chat. Um, as always, with new platforms, this is one of those things that we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see. It was the same way with Rockfin. We had to wait and see. So, um, Eric Thomas, I like Nick MMA's take fraud squad performance sank Nina Turner. Yeah, we're going to talk about that because I know that money played a part. I think we're all aware of that, but at the same time, having talked to people who are from Ohio and have already told me why they voted the way that they did and why people vote the way that they do there, I really want you guys to hear that perspective as well because we all know the money is an issue. We all knew that that was going to be a problem for any like grassroots candidate. We knew that was going to be a problem. Um but we've had progressive candidates still win even though they had the money issue. So there is something else at play here. And I've heard different takes from different people on Twitter. I'm going to bring people on to talk about it and give their perspective as well. But I don't think it's just the money issue. My opinion, if you want to know, I honestly feel like some of the enthusiasm was gone. I feel like, how can I say this? Okay, so I feel like I told you guys again, I don't have a lot of faith in electoral politics and the two-party system. I just don't. Just I've been fooled too many times. That being said, when Nina Turner announced that she was running, I was happy that Nina Turner was running. I was hoping that would happen one day. But that being said, one thing I noticed is I was not as enthusiastic about it as I was when AOC ran, when Jamal Bowman ran, when Cori Bush ran. when Bernie, like all of them, that level of excitement and enthusiasm, it just wasn't there. And a lot of that is based on, what I've seen with the squad, how I've seen Bernie Sanders behave, like just basically like listening to Joe Biden, just making excuses for Joe Biden. Out of all the people, I didn't expect Bernie to make excuses for Biden. I expected him to stand up and fight. And so for me, by the time that Nina Turner announced that she was running, me personally, I was like, oh, yay, that's going to be great, for Nina. But I was not enthusiastic about it, man. I just wasn't. I'm just being honest with you. Like, I should have been more excited than I was. And that's a shame. But I'm not sure if that's how a lot of other people are feeling. Harry Smith, Brianna's reporting about the massive volume of whoa, vituperative? Vituperative TV and print advertising swamping people in the district itself was very interesting. Yeah, I saw that as well, that a lot of people got hit with anti like Nina ads, all these Nina attack ads. But you know what? That does happen. I've seen that happen several times like in politics. And you have to find a way to fight back. But yeah, those attack ads, man, like people, a lot of people don't realize like how effective those can be, especially if your opponent isn't doing the same thing. Like those ads can actually be really effective. So, Joe, I agree. We need a new party. Absolutely. Absolutely. Grace says electoral politics ain't it. Here you go. Wild Light Art said, I'm with you. I donated, but I'm tired with you. Yeah, I mean, I don't have that oomph that I used to have like anymore for electoral politics. I just don't have it anymore. Give me another party, give me another third party or something, and or I don't know, like run maybe as independent. Just do. I mean, you guys, those of you who were here last night, you saw what Afeni said, what AOC told her about how things work, about how things work in Congress, how AOC herself is frustrated because she is so tired of not being able to do grassroots stuff because she's a member of Congress. All the procedures, you have to follow all of these necessary. It's just it just goes to show you. That's why I keep saying when people say let's do it through the Democratic Party, I just shake my head at that. Once upon a time, I believed we could do that. And I'm one of those people, I like to wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens. Let's see how they do. Let's see how it works out. It hasn't been working out. And the thing is, the party itself is more powerful. It's too powerful. The DNC is powerful. So you have all these powerful entities working against you. So if you're coming in and you're one of the squad members, like I said last night, you are already at a disadvantage. The system itself already works against you. Now, does that mean that they could not force the vote? No. Who cares if Nancy Pelosi gets mad? That was the whole point. She's supposed to get upset. Nancy Pelosi has been treating people so horribly, like people in her district. Talk to people in her district. How horribly those people have been treated since Nancy Pelosi has been in office. Nancy Pelosi didn't even debate Shahid Buttar. I don't think that's fair. I think that's BS. I think everybody should have to debate. That's how corrupt the system is. Go into comments in the chat. Eric Thomas said the established loves it when we're discouraged. It's true. But I feel like we have to find, it's time to come up with a different strategy. We got to do something different. So, for example, people are saying we can't get these things accomplished if we don't do them through electoral politics, right? That's actually not true. For example, $15 minimum wage, which it should be more, in my opinion, it should be higher than that. Instead of trying to get this passed in the House and the Senate, one of the ways that we can get that, general strike. You want to guarantee that everybody in this country can have paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave, general strike. So the idea or the philosophy that we can only do it through electoral politics, I feel like that is old school thinking. And I feel like we need to be more bold. We need to be more aggressive. We need to start thinking about other strategies to move forward. Shout out to Lila. She's a Sabby Sabs member. Can we chew gum and walk? There you go. There you go. Hello, Stephen. General strike. Absolutely. Stephanie, we keep doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. Yep. Every time. Every time. Michelle Grant says, I just lost it. Michelle Grant says, general strike. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sin the alien said, then the system needs to be dismantled. Exactly. I mean, look, they're telling you it's not going to work the way that we have tried to do it. It's not, we can't change it from within. Even if putting those people in, even putting in the Justice Democrats, which the Justice Democrats is even siding with the establishment. Look at how they were pushing Neera Tanden. You see what I'm saying? Our revolution, our revolution isn't looking too good right now. They're starting to get kind of questionable and weird. These are these progressive groups that were supposed to make this big impact, that was supposed to bring about change. So it is very difficult to do it that way. I mean, we can look back and say, at least we tried. We tried. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still going to be people telling you that we still need to do it that way. We need to do the inside game. And they'll just keep telling us that and keep telling us that. And we'll continue to be disappointed because of the power structures that already exist in the Democratic Party. Anytime you got people telling you, newbies that come in, you have them telling you, we can't upset Nancy Pelosi, who I think should retire anyway. Some of these people need to retire. Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn's like 80 years old. And every time we try to accomplish progress in this country, those two in particular always try to hold us back every time. But they'll tell you that they're progressive. Grace said the inside game is killing us. We don't have time for that. No, we don't. Because this inside game isn't giving everyone health care in this country. It's not increasing the minimum wage. We don't even guarantee maternity leave to people in this country. Steven said, general strike and empty your bank account, collapse the system. Did you guys know that back in the day, like James Brown said, bury your money in the ground? I think he did that too. He might have been onto something there. I'm not going to keep you guys too long, though. I'm so sorry Taylor couldn't make it. I was looking forward to seeing it too. But I will update the title and I will update the thumbnail so people don't get confused and are like, hey, what happened? Kimber, why can't I send you a super chat? Tried with my mobile and PC. Let me try. I didn't know you couldn't. Oh, that's weird. I can send one. Let me see. Oh, shoot. I think I forgot to turn it on. Oh, balls. That's okay. I'm about to end anyway. I did. I forgot to go in. Yeah, for you guys that don't know, you have to go into, I forget that sometimes. Today's been a long day. Every time you do a live stream, you have to go in right before to each one and actually select the monetization. If you don't select it, then people won't be able to send super chats. I'm sorry, you guys. And I can't update it while I'm on here. That blows. But anyway, I am not going to keep you guys. Join me tomorrow. Wynn's laughing at me. Join me tomorrow over at Fred Hampton Leftist Podcast for our roundtable at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you who would like to become a Sabby Sabs member, you can hit the join button on my channel. You become a member, you get cool perks, get a cute little Sabby face next to your name when you chat. And there's emojis there you can use too. Um, and if that is not your thing, you can also contribute through Patreon. My minimum Patreon is $1 because Patreon won't let you put anything less than that. And honestly, I wanted to give people the freedom to give what they can. I know some people can't do $5 a month or do $10 a month. So $1 is the minimum, but you can give as much as you want. And that is how you can help support me. But join me tomorrow on FHL for Roundtable. Friday, I'll be back here at 7 p.m. and we are going to talk to Ohio residents about why voters voted the way that they did in Ohio for Nina Turner's race. So join for that and a special announcement from Meg from FHL. Other than that, have a good night. Keep up the fight.